What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing another episode of Good or Bad. Today's movie on what we're going to be talking about is The Last Jedi. It has a 90% from critics and a 42% from audiences on Rotten Tomatoes. It has an 84% from critics and a 4.3 user score on Metacritic. It has a 7.0 out of 10 on IMDb, and it has a 3.3 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. This movie is supposed to be the most divisive Star Wars film in the franchise. And still, to this day, people still can't figure out on whether or not this movie is supposed to be good or whether it's supposed to be bad. And for a show that is supposed to be called Good or Bad, this is the perfect movie to go ahead and talk about. My opponent that I will be facing in this video, his name is Adam Daly. He's actually the guy that just so happened to create this concept of a show. And since I've known him for being a really big defender on not liking The Last Jedi, I had to bring him on here as a guest. So without further ado, I'm going to take it over to Adam Daly, who's going to defend on why The Last Jedi is actually a bad movie. So, Adam, take it away, my man.
Hey everybody, my name is Adam of Almost Sideways on YouTube and Almost Sideways Movie Podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, and Stitcher. I'm here to tell you why I think Star Wars The Last Jedi is not good. I'm kind of leaning towards bad in a way. Quite frankly, when I went to see this film on opening night with a bunch of my good friends and co-workers, I was like the only person in the theater that did not like the experience whatsoever. Now, it could have been the opening joke that Oscar Isaac's Poe Dameron had to General Hux. However, overall, I just felt there was a lot of things that just happened because they could happen and we can just explain it with the Force. But none of that stuff really happened or was shown in much detail or set up in prior films. Now granted, that might have been because there was so many years between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, and that long gap and hiatus between the Star Wars franchise, there was not really a backstory other than unless you read the novelizations, which were a lot of that was completely written off and not considered canon, but it's considered as the legend or legends or legacy or whatever. And for Star Wars The Last Jedi, I think the biggest hindrance, and a lot of people will say this, is Canto Bight. The whole mission with Rose and Finn. This whole mission considerably was completely useless. It felt more like a scene out of Harry Potter than a Star Wars movie. They were going to a casino planet, but Poe Dameron didn't go there, and somehow he knew Maz Kanata, even though there was no connection in the Force Awakens setup at all. And then Rose and Finn, in that one scene, were supposed to look for a guy with a pennant. It would have been a perfect setup to have that guy be Lando Calrissian, but it was some insignificant character that we never saw from again. This film completely wastes Benicio del Toro, one of the best actors working today, completely wastes him on his screen time. They also give a big, this middle finger to Captain Phasma. They completely hype this character up from the get-go with Force Awakens, and they just give her even less screen time and give her less to do and just say screw it. And now we don't even know what happened to her in the film space, that is. The Last Jedi is full of potential. There's some things I do like about it. I like the twist of the whole Snoke thing. I kind of dig that. I enjoyed that kind of shocking revelation that, no, he's gone. Kylo Ren's the main guy. And I like the Kylo Ren character. I think Kylo Ren is by far the best thing in this new Star Wars sequel series. Everything I'm saying here right now about The Last Jedi, I'm still frustrated by. However, I'm giving the film a little bit more leniency than I probably did back when this film came out, because I saw Rise of Skywalker, which was even more of a disappointment. All the fans that completely loved this Last Jedi film are completely disappointed because Rise of the Skywalker completely erases the entire Last Jedi story, which is even more of a frustration for me and more into why I don't like this film. I wish they went back to a lot of this Last Jedi, because even though I didn't like it, there were some good pieces, like what are they going to do next? Like, how are they going to explain these questions? And then maybe that's why I kind of appreciate the movie a little bit more. But there's a lot of things I didn't like about the movie, especially like Laura Dern's character. Introduce a brand new character who also somehow knew Princess Leia or General Leia, and she flies a ship into the big spaceship, and it looks visually stunning. But why? And also a bunch of Force powers with Leia. Yes, in the books, in the novels, those powers were there, but just giving her them just because it was convenient, didn't really like that. And also Skywalker, Luke Skywalker, I didn't like that. I don't feel like that was his character, and was completely just upset with the handling of Luke Skywalker. If I was in charge of this Star Wars franchise, you of course would be having a game plan from start to finish and not focus on these main characters and pushing them as the focal point. I would push new characters with the sprinkling in of the old characters. I appreciate The Last Jedi a little bit more than I did before because Rise of Skywalker just ruined this movie even further for me, if that makes sense. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for having me on, Chandler. Hopefully I explained my case and why I personally did not think The Last Jedi was that good movie. Anyway, we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, Adam, for being a part of this show, and if you can, please go down in the description link below and click on all of the links that lead to all of the content that he creates. He's got his own YouTube channel, a podcast on Apple and Spotify. Go and give the guy some support and share some love. But now it's time for me to play devil's advocate and bring up my defense on why I would say The Last Jedi is actually a good movie. Now, would I say that The Last Jedi is actually a good movie? I wouldn't say it's bad. It did some bad choices, but I also think that there's some good things that should be acknowledged as well. So I'm going to be mainly focusing on the good aspects that did actually come from The Last Jedi. First reason why I would say The Last Jedi can be good is because it gives out new ways on how the Force is like in the Star Wars franchise. Before The Last Jedi came out, there were like these simple little Jedi and Sith tricks that we didn't really go into that much in the Star Wars franchise. Jedis would be able to sense another Jedi that's near. Sometimes they would do like simple Jedi mind tricks and say, these aren't the droids that you're looking for. They would be able to carry one object from another or one place to their hand, or sometimes they wouldn't even have to choke them and they would just do this and they're already gasping for breath. This one takes all of those types of techniques and goes in further as to what new type of techniques any characters in the Star Wars franchise can actually do. To me, this makes the franchise a lot more fun and unique. It brings in more creative abilities on how the Star Wars franchise can be reinvented, and it can also bring in brand new various ways on how to do character studies on Star Wars characters. This lets us study and understand brand new conflicts and complications on how our characters are feeling, or it can also be a simple and easy way to understand how a character is actually feeling, but in a brand new perspective on how it ties in from the techniques that we're used to seeing when people are using the Force. These brand new techniques that The Last Jedi introduces not only makes it fun, but also interesting when you're wanting to do character study. The second thing that I want to bring up is that this film has fantastic visual imagery. The action scene where Rey, Kylo were facing off against the Praetorian guards in the throne room, that was a great scene. The way that it's shot just represents all of the attention to details on the color symbolisms, the metaphors and allegories that are going on everywhere in this movie. It's like you're taking a look at a brand new lens on how the Star Wars franchise can turn itself around and be a lot more interesting considering the way it's being directed. The Star Wars franchise has this theme of being epic by telling it through a story. We know exactly who the characters are because we don't really need much of an explanation from them. It's just the characters themselves that we really like, and it's the journey that they're going on that we really like seeing and why it's epic. Now, what makes this movie really good and how the visuals emphasize it is by bringing in more close intimacy and empathy with our main characters, Luke, Rey, and Kylo Ren. The visual effects in the dark alleyways that represent Rey and her lost cause, trying to search for her purpose and being in a huge pit where she doesn't know where she wants to belong at, but figures out that maybe it could be Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren and his very strong connection that he manages to get closer to by being telepathically Force sensitive with Rey. The shots that come close between Kylo Ren and Rey Skywalker and some of the shots that are coming in with Luke Skywalker, they look fantastic and amazing. They represent the character's emotions, how they're feeling, why it actually works, and how it can be very complicated, but you can understand why. You would kind of question why in the world are these two characters close to each other when they're supposed to be mortal enemies. And through the visuals, you can feel that emotional aspect that these two are feeling and why they can grow closer together. And the last thing that I want to bring up is that I like that our characters are not perfect, especially Luke Skywalker. People are probably expecting him to be exactly like Master Yoda, where he has answers to everything and he's a full-grown Jedi that knows all the ways of the world. But the thing about Luke Skywalker is that he probably isn't all that we would have wanted him to be like. For me, he seems like a character that wants to try and do all things that are correct, but when everything goes terribly wrong, he ends up being in this pit of depression and wouldn't feel like that he's worthy of being a Jedi anymore. Adding that ideal of him giving up and not feeling like that he is the best at what he does, but in the end, he tries to overcome that kind of depression and wants to go back to doing what it is that he can do best, makes him more relatable to me. Sure, it's nice to see characters that are wise and old and feel like that they've known all of the ways in the world, but you had to admit, wise characters like that have probably been through situations that Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi have been through as well. And to see a character like Luke Skywalker go through a character arc that's exactly like that, to me feels interesting. And I honestly enjoyed it for that. And the same can be said for Kylo Ren. He's on this inner conflict battlefield where whether or not he wants to be a part of the dark side of the Force, or if this is actually something that he really does want. The more conflicting a hero or an enemy's character arc is like, the more interesting the story gets. And for me, I feel like that can actually be a plus for The Last Jedi. So that is my defense on why I would say The Last Jedi can actually be a good movie. But what did you guys think of The Last Jedi? Let's actually talk about it in a fun and appropriate manner, and let's not get really toxic about it, because I know Star Wars fans can get really toxic when it comes to this film. Put them down in the comment section below and let's start a conversation about it. And like this video if you agree with what I say, or dislike this video if you disagree with what I say. I don't mind the dislikes. So that is it I have for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you, Adam Daly, for being a part of this episode. I'm really glad that you were on the show, and I'll be sure to see you in the next video.